Crop Compass was developed by a group of us who were interested in what's growing in Oregon, where is it growing, and maybe how has that changed over time. We looked at a ton of different data sets over the last 3 to 4 months, took a slice, distilled it down, and have tried to present it in a digestible format. Alright, so here's our app. On the right, there's a couple map layers you can choose from. This is from the USDA's data set of what they call the land capability classes, and that includes things like the soil composition, the slope and its drainage, things like that. And the lower the number means the better the soil is for growing crops there. So when you first look at this map, at least when we did, we were surprised how little there was, and made us wonder even more, what are we doing with these precious acres? So the next layer you can choose are where crops are growing. This is really interesting. It comes from remotely sensed data, and each pixel represents 1 square kilometer of what is perceived to be a crops growing in the field. And already you can start to ask some questions like, why in the middle here it says there seem to be so much capable soil, but not a whole lot of acres of crops growing. And then down here, the reverse, a lot of crops growing on what appears to be less capable soil. So maybe there's some more tolerant varieties growing there or something like that. Getting deeper, you can use our crop selector to choose a particular crop. Let's choose cherries. And now you can see exactly where cherries are perceived to be growing up here in the Hood River area along the Columbia River. There are a ton of different units in these databases like acres, square feet, a number of heads of cattle, number of chickens, hives for beehives. And so this is one example where we had to combine these data sets in a meaningful way, and so here we had just a list of things that were spatial things, acres and square feet, and the number of animals. Moving down, well, we have our list of county rankings, and these are some interesting numbers that we distilled from a lot of data down into just one number. First is what we call the effective number of crops. This takes into account the number of crops growing in that region as well as how big that region is. So let's change regions. And there's this one as 1.5. So if it's a big county with 10 crops growing, it's going to have a lower number than a small county with the same 10 crops growing. Annual precipitation and growing degree days. So this is kind of like your rain and sunshine. Growing degree days is a number of days over 50 degrees and how far over 50 degrees they were added up together. Then we have a real simple number of farms per commodity in a region. Let's switch back to Oregon and see. Total number of farms in Oregon, 35,000, and cherry farms, you can see that there, 745. And this is a simple chart, but very powerful because the number of farms takes into account a lot of factors. Why did someone choose to grow this crop? It takes in historical factors as well as a person's intuition and their own data sources. So looking at just the number of farms per commodity is interesting. Which is the total acres harvested over time. This comes from a third data set from Oregon State University, which they take into account a lot of different crops, not just the big ones like wheat and barley that USDA has been tracking for the last 100 years, but smaller things, anything from turkey eggs to pheasants and rabbits, and they've been sampling that data every year since 1976. So you can choose a crop and see some interesting trends over time. Here's acres of all crops in Oregon over time. Let's choose hops. And here's how acres of hops harvested over time. Behind all this is our API we've built. And this is where we've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you, where you can browse these data sets and hopefully get started more quickly than you would from scratch. And this takes into account, of all the different data sets that we looked at: imports and exports, subsidies, the soil types, weather data, and all that. So that was Crop Compass. The project is totally open source, so if you're interested in the same stuff we were, check us out on GitHub, and we'll be continuing to add to the platform over time.